most gardens look powerful in spring. The beds are green, the leaves are tender, and everything feels full of promise. But then summer arrives across the United States, and it is not just a little warmth in the afternoon. It is that hard, steady heat, the kind that pushes past 90 degrees Fahrenheit, dries up the rain, and makes the sun feel like a heavy weight pressing down on the garden. If you grow in zones 6 through 10, especially in places like Zone 9B where summer days often climb over 100 degrees, you already know this season well. Leaves begin to curl. Blossoms fall before they become fruit. The soil tightens until it feels almost like concrete. And the same garden that looked so alive a few weeks earlier suddenly begins to slow down, struggle, and fade. I have seen many gardeners look at their wilting tomatoes, their bitter spinach, their tired beds, and quietly blame themselves. They think, maybe I'm just not good at this. Or they decide that summer is simply the season when the garden has to give up. But after many years of working with soil, crops, and real growing conditions, I can tell you this, that belief is wrong. Heat is not always the enemy. For the right plants, heat is energy. Welcome back to Earthly Delights. Today, we are changing the way we look at summer gardening. Instead of fighting nature, we are going to learn how to work with it. I'm going to share 12 vegetables that do not merely survive brutal summer heat. They grow stronger in it, produce through it, and keep feeding you when more delicate crops have already collapsed. And stay with me until the end, because I will also share 3 powerful ways to protect your soil and crops, including an old clay pot watering method that can completely change how you manage heat and moisture in the garden. So, are you ready to turn a sun-scorched yard into a productive summer oasis? Let's dig in. 1. Okra, the undisputed king of the heat. When the heat becomes truly intense, okra is just getting comfortable. Across much of the American South, okra has earned its legendary reputation for one simple reason. When many garden crops begin to slow down after temperatures climb above 90 degrees Fahrenheit, okra often keeps growing with even more strength. This is one of the finest examples of a plant built for heat. Okra sends a deep taproot down into the soil, reaching moisture that shallow-rooted crops cannot access. Some varieties, such as Clemson Spinless 80, can grow into tall, 6-foot plants, producing pod after pod through the hottest weeks of summer. The key is regular harvesting. Pick the pods while they are young, around 3 to 4 inches long, and the plant will usually respond by producing even more. And that is the lesson okra gives every gardener. Heat does not always mean failure. Sometimes it simply asks us to grow deeper roots, adapt better, and keep going when conditions become difficult. 2. Sweet potatoes, the living mulch. Next is one of the strongest and most useful summer crops you can grow, sweet potatoes. They handle heat, humidity, and even dry periods far better than many common vegetables, while also giving you serious nutrition from both above and below the soil. The real beauty of sweet potatoes is the way they protect the ground. Once the vines begin to spread, they quickly cover bare soil with a thick green canopy. That living cover works like mulch. It shades the soil, slows moisture loss, reduces weed pressure, and helps create a cooler, more stable microclimate around the roots. And here is something many gardeners in the United States still overlook. The leaves are edible. While the tubers are forming underground, you can harvest the tender leaves and lightly sauté them as a summer green. One plant gives you 2 harvests, and that is what I call smart gardening. 3. Yardlong beans, the vertical superstar. If you want a crop that brings both productivity and surprise to the garden, yardlong beans are hard to beat. They are also known as asparagus beans or snake beans, and they truly shine when the weather turns hot. Regular green beans often stop setting blossoms when temperatures stay above 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Yardlong beans, especially varieties like Orient Wonder or Red Noodle, are different. They keep producing in heat and humidity, sending out long, slender pods that hang from the trellis like green ropes. Because they climb upward, they save ground space and improve airflow around the plants. Harvest them when they are about 12 to 18 inches long, before the seeds fully mature. At that stage, they are tender, crisp, lightly sweet, and easy to understand why they are loved in many Southeast Asian kitchens. 4. Armenian cucumbers. The secret melon number 4 is the Armenian cucumber, and this one surprises many gardeners because it is not actually a true cucumber. Botanically, it belongs to the muskmelon family, Cucumis melovar flexuosus. That matters because regular cucumbers often struggle in peak summer heat. They may turn bitter, yellow, or stressed when temperatures stay high. Armenian cucumbers handle those conditions much better. Their melon-like nature gives them stronger water retention and steadier growth under heat stress. They produce long, pale green, slightly ribbed fruits that stay crisp, sweet, and never bitter. even when the temperature rises above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Give them a strong trellis so the fruits can grow straighter and cleaner. On a blazing August day, slicing into one feels like finding cool water hidden inside the garden. 5. Malabar spinach, the summer green savior. Anyone who has tried to grow regular spinach in June or July knows the problem. Once the heat arrives, true spinach bolts goes to seed and turns bitter fast. That is where Malabar spinach becomes a real summer solution. Malabar spinach, or Bacella alba, is not a true spinach. It is a tender tropical vine with thick, glossy, semi-succulent leaves that hold moisture well and handle heat far better than traditional greens. While lettuce and spinach are collapsing, Malabar spinach often begins growing faster. Some varieties, like rubra, also bring beautiful burgundy stems that make the plant look almost ornamental. Give it warmth, steady moisture, and a trellis to climb, and it will reward you with mild, fresh greens for salads, soups, and stir-fries all summer long. For hot weather gardening, it feels like discovering a secret door back to fresh greens. 6. Tomatillos, nature's paper lanterns. At number 6, we have tomatillos. If you enjoy fresh salsa verde, this is one crop that deserves a place in your summer garden. Tomatillos are fascinating because they come with their own natural protection from the sun. As the fruit begins to form, the calyx expands around it and becomes that familiar papery husk. I like to think of it as a tiny lantern, but it also works like a natural shade cover, helping protect the young fruit from harsh sunlight and damaging UV exposure. They do need warm soil to get started, usually above 60 degrees Fahrenheit, and they are not small, quiet plants. Give them room, because they can easily spread up to 4 feet once they are happy. But after they settle in, they handle hot, bright conditions very well. Harvest them when the husk begins to split open or turns dry and leathery, but before the fruit turns yellow. That is when the flavor is at its best. 7. Hot peppers, the fire seekers. By now you may notice a pattern. Many vegetables that come from hot climates already carry the strength to handle our toughest summers. Hot peppers are one of the clearest examples of that. From jalapenos to habaneros and datills, this group gives gardeners an incredible range of shapes, colors, flavors, and heat levels. What makes them especially interesting is that warm temperatures and strong sunlight can encourage the plant to produce more capsaicin. In simple terms, the same summer heat that stresses many crops can make hot peppers spicier and more flavorful. Peppers are also practical plants for many kinds of gardens. They can grow well in a large raised bed, but they can also do beautifully in a 5-gallon bucket on a sunny patio. They stay fairly compact, they look attractive, and when they are cared for properly, they keep giving over a long season. 8. Amaranth, the ancient survivor. Amaranth is one of those plants that deserves real respect. It uses a highly efficient C4 photosynthetic pathway, which means it can keep fixing carbon and growing even when heat and drought make life difficult for many other crops. When the soil feels almost too hot to touch, amaranth can still stand tall. It also gives you more than one kind of harvest. The young leaves are nutritious and can be cooked much like spinach, making them a valuable summer green. If you allow the plant to mature, it can also produce thousands of tiny seeds that are rich in protein and often used like a grain. Some varieties, such as tricolor, are beautiful as well as useful, with red and yellow foliage that looks almost like fire rising from the soil. Amaranth teaches a powerful lesson in the garden. Toughness does not have to look plain. Sometimes the strongest plants are also the most beautiful. 9. Cowpea southern peas, the soil healers. Number 9 brings us to cowpeas, also known as southern peas. This group includes familiar types like black-eyed peas, Mississippi silver, and iron clay. Cowpeas are more than just a food crop. They are one of the great soil-building plants of the summer garden. Their deep taproots help them reach moisture in dry, tired soils, and because they are legumes, they work with soil bacteria to fix nitrogen. That means they can help pull nitrogen from the air and add fertility back into the soil while they grow. This is why cowpeas are so valuable in hot, worn-out garden beds. They do not just survive where other plants struggle. They help improve the ground for future crops. You can harvest the young pods and eat them like snap beans, or let them dry on the vine for shell peas. It is a true survival crop. It feeds you, protects the soil, and helps heal the garden at the same time. 10. Japanese eggplant, the heat-loving nightshade. Some standard eggplants can drop their blossoms when the weather becomes too unstable, but slender Japanese and Italian types, such as Ichiban, often perform beautifully in real summer heat. Eggplants build a strong, fibrous root system, and that root strength helps them handle hot soil and resist wilting when temperatures rise. Warm nights, long days, and steady sunlight can push them into vigorous growth, turning them into some of the most productive plants in a summer garden. They are also dramatic plants to look at. With broad leaves and glossy, deep purple fruits hanging from the stems, Japanese eggplant brings both beauty and food to the hottest part of the season. It does not panic when summer arrives. In many ways, it has been waiting for it. 11. New Zealand spinach, the sprawling miracle. If you are searching for a leafy green that can replace spinach during the heat of summer, New Zealand spinach is one of the best answers. Like Malabar spinach, it is not true botanical spinach, and that is exactly why it performs so well when regular spinach gives up. Instead of growing upright, bolting quickly, and turning bitter, New Zealand spinach spreads outward across the garden bed. It fills empty space, covers soil, and keeps producing from late spring all the way until the first frost. The more you harvest the tender tips and young leaves, the more the plant branches and pushes out fresh growth. When delicate spring greens have already surrendered to the sun, this plant steps in and keeps the kitchen supplied. It reminds us that many garden problems are not really failures. They are often a matter of choosing the right crop for the right season. 12. Watermelon, the sweet reward. Finally, at number 12, we have one of the greatest symbols of American summer. Watermelon. Watermelon was truly built for heat. Once established, it sends roots deep into the soil and can handle dry periods much better than many shallow-rooted crops. In fact, the steady heat that causes weaker plants to shut down is the same heat that helps watermelon produce its sweetest, most refreshing fruit. As the fruit gets close to maturity, reducing watering slightly can help concentrate the natural sugars inside the melon. It also helps lower the risk of splitting. After weeks of sun, heat, and patient care, watermelon becomes the garden's perfect reward. Cool, sweet, hydrating, and made for the hottest days of the year. 3 secrets to mastering the microclimate now. When we step back and look at this list, we can see the real lesson clearly. Summer heat does not have to end your harvest. It only ends the wrong harvest. But choosing the right plants is only part of the work. If we truly want a productive garden in brutal heat, we cannot just react when plants begin to suffer. We have to think like caretakers of the whole growing environment. We have to protect the soil, protect the roots, and build a better microclimate around our crops. Secret 1. Deep organic mulch. Have you ever stepped barefoot onto bare soil in July? It can feel like stepping onto a hot pan. But walk onto a forest floor covered with leaves, and the ground feels cooler, softer, and more alive. That is the model we want to copy in the garden. A 3 to 4 inch layer of organic mulch, such as straw, shredded leaves, or wood chips, can make a huge difference. Mulch acts like insulation for the soil. It helps lower soil temperature, holds moisture longer, reduces watering pressure, and keeps the surface from baking into a hard crust. Bare soil in summer loses water fast and heats up quickly. Covered soil stays protected. So in hot weather, do not leave your soil exposed. Secret, the ancient magic of all pots of watering, is one of your biggest summer struggles. One of the smartest solutions comes from the past. For more than 2,000 years, people have used ollas, pronounced oyas, to water plants slowly and efficiently. An olla is an unglazed terracotta clay pot buried in the soil with only the neck left above the surface. You fill the pot with water, and as the surrounding soil dries, it pulls moisture through the porous clay directly toward the plant roots. This gives the plant water where it needs it most, without wasting so much through evaporation. It also encourages deeper rooting instead of shallow surface watering. Simple, quiet, and efficient. This old method still works beautifully in a modern summer garden. Secret 3. The power of shade cloth. Finally, do not be afraid to give your plants some protection from the harshest afternoon sun. A 30% to 50% shade cloth placed over the garden during peak heat can reduce stress and make the growing area easier for plants to handle. Shade cloth can cool the surrounding air slightly, reduce sunburn on fruits like tomatoes and peppers, and take pressure off the plant's water-moving system. The goal is not to block all sunlight. Morning sun is still valuable and energizing. But in the hottest part of the day, a little shade can help the plant keep producing instead of shutting down. Outro and call to action gardening is, at its heart, a relationship with the earth. Sometimes we try too hard to force our own plans onto the season. We plant cool weather crops in July, watch them struggle, and wonder what went wrong. But when we slow down, observe, and work with the rhythm of nature, the whole garden begins to make more sense. We find plants that do not fear the heat but thrive in it. We learn to cover the soil, protect the roots, and create conditions where life can keep growing. We realize that we do not always need to fight the summer. We need to understand it. So let me ask you this. What is one thing in your garden, or even in your life, that you have been fighting against when you might be able to work with it instead? If this helped you see summer gardening in a new way, hit the subscribe button and join the Earthly Delights community. Tell me in the comments which of these 12 heat-loving vegetables you are going to plant first. Until next time, keep your roots deep, keep your soil covered, and keep growing. I'll see you in the garden.